Hello, everyone. I'm glad y'all were able to join us tonight. We had a good week of doing some control tests and things that we're going to be looking at. There was also some breaking news reference to Delphi and certain podcasters releasing some information. So I know after the presentation, those questions will probably be asked. But also, general housekeeping is respect everyone in chat, respect mods. No names or initials because we don't want to influence anyone out there that may have some type of tip or clue that can call into law enforcement. And with that being said, we'll get into the presentation here. Okay, as always, this is Mrs. Steve and I'm Steve. And brief bio is I'm retired law enforcement, had 20 years of service. During that time, I started my career as a jailer and worked my way through road patrol and up into investigations. I had a lot of training across the board, everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene tech, which assisted me immensely in my investigative career and gave me a basis of what we're going to be talking about tonight, about some of the tests and controls that I did, that I have performed this week, trying to answer a few questions that had occurred to me. And I've seen, hey, thank you, Michelle Nicholas. I'm glad to see you here. And most certainly appreciate your support and everything. But there's a lot of things in the crime scene world that we consider and some of the training we have that's in a classroom setting. Well, once you're out of that and become after you retire, you're not so much in the classroom settings and stuff. And so you have to create certain things and go back on some of your training. And that's what I've done. And with this training that I learned throughout my career, I decided to use this so I can present things like tonight so that the web sleuths out there get an understanding of how law enforcement and former law enforcement look at certain cases and evidence and what occurs at crime scenes, both pre-crime and post-crime, because that was one of the things that we were going to look at extremely close tonight is, of course, everyone knows who this individual here is. This is BG. And this individual, pre-crime, dressed a certain way. And he went and committed and killed 2 innocent children, this psychopath here. Well, after this murder in this crime scene, he had to leave the crime scene. And so when I was looking at the search warrant that was served on the Logan residence, there was a certain references made that by the agent in charge getting the search warrant that the offender would have most certainly, in all probability, have been had some type of blood evidence on him, which indicates that, okay, if we have blood evidence on us, that most certainly means that it got on our clothing, on our skin, hats, pants, shoes, boots, whatever he had on him. The agent that got the warrant believed that they most certainly was a transfer of blood spatter, blood stains, transfers, which can occur in a lot of different ways. If there was any type of contact by the either Libby or Abby with him at some point through the encounter, then most certainly they could have been transfers to him and to his clothing or to his body. And so when I was looking at that and that original issue of the affidavit and was reading through it, I began to plan and think about that. How would I present and how would I look at this and how could someone commit such a crime and leave such a crime and be unnoticed? And it was very intriguing to me to try to figure out that if you committed such a crime and you do have blood spatter on you, how could you walk out of there and people not see it? And so that's what this whole test and control I did this week was about. And it was extremely revealing. And as you'll see, it surprised me on several occasions of what I saw and what the results were. But anyway, as everyone knows, me and my Yeti suit here, when I went and created a crime scene back on my property back behind my residence, that I dressed in this manner for a certain reason, not only to create and protect myself from these synthetic bloods that I had ordered so I could create a crime scene so that I could illustrate to you, my audience and my community out there, of what and how hard it was to see evidence at these crime scenes. But also there was, during this test, it was also to see, as I create dark arts, you guys are the best, as is your community. Perhaps a dumb question, but can blood ever get completely washed out of clothing? That's, well, there will probably be certain remnants of it. And actually, part of my test, I've got the clothing that I used in this. And as you'll see, we will be doing a wash cycle on it to see how effective it is and how many washings it takes to get the synthetic blood out of the thing. So kind of a spoiler alert, you hit on one of my future tests, but most certainly that's what I love about this community. Extremely bright. You already understand where I'm going with this. And thank you for that question, but that's exactly what's going to happen with
my washing machine.
Well, yeah, with the clothing that I used in this, because I did some, and you'll see as we progress along what the comparatives I did for this control. But when I suited up, I had the intention that I was going to do everything I could to try to have as little transfer of any type of blood spatter back onto myself through back spatter, projected, or any type of blood spatter that can occur at a crime scene. And so I was very deliberate and very careful, but I was in a rush and time frame I had that I put myself on the clock, that I had to go out and create all these blood stains as quickly as possible because Bridge Guy was at the crime scene for a limited amount of time. And with that being said, I'm not trying to create the actual scene that was there. That's an impossibility. I wasn't there. I don't have the data. Law enforcement does have the data, and so they could go back and actually recreate the crime scene pretty well from what evidence they gather. They'd understand certain positionings of the bodies through the injuries. Certain types of injuries create certain types of blood exchanges and blood loss, and so they would be able to rebuild it. From my perspective here, having no access to the information, I don't have that, so I have to just do a generalized, very quick, and so that I can show you what does occur and how it could occur, and somewhere between the best case and worst case of the blood spatter controls I perform, within those parameters, more than likely is how much BG walked out with on his person. Because I went from as little to maximize, and as you'll see here in a few minutes, that I tried to create just about everything I could. There's going to be some variables I'm unaware of, and there's going to be variables that you can't control or you can't completely cover everything in 30 minutes. So, but anyway, I had this Yeti suit on here, as I call it, and as you look at this, you really can't tell. This is the front part of it. If you go in there and you blow it up, you'll see some of the light stains up around the mid chest area, and you'll see, of course, the blood stains down on the lower legs. But this is the front of the Yeti suit, as I call it, and as you see, it's very lightly stained. I darkened it a little bit so you can see some of the darker spots a little bit, but that's just through color. And I pointed out some of the blood stains so that when you look at it on your screen, you blow it up, stop it, whatever you want to do, and look at this, you'll be able to see some of those stains that would have been on the front of whatever clothing he was wearing at the time. And but like I said, I did this with a purpose, to have a very light stained suit, so that you would understand what that blood transfer would have been at a minimum, because I was very, very careful that when I was doing my cast off patterns, or when I was doing the arterial sprays from certain injuries that might have occurred, to try to match what was within the affidavit, saying that he most certainly would more than likely have some type of blood transfer. And that can only come from certain types of injuries or defensive wounds or contacts, or offensive contacts, such as any type of physical strikes or anything he did that might create low velocity or mid velocity blood spatter patterns. And so I created all that, did this, and then this is a little bit blow up of it. You can see that some of the stains right dead center of the torso that you can see, and you can see where from the suit that these little light blood spatters occurred. And that came from a low velocity, mid velocity of where I had a collection of blood and slapped my two hands together, and it created a lot of different droplets of different size. In one of my future controls, I'll be hitting this with luminol, and you'll be able to see that what it lights up like a Christmas tree. And then on this, I darkened it up a little bit so you can see the actual a little bit darker, and you can see some of the blood pattern of what occurred whenever I slapped my hands together to, try to do a comparative of some type of low velocity blood spatter. And then, of course, you got the blood spatters down around the ankles, and there's, anything that happens while you're standing up, blood does arc out. It can get transferred out, and you can most certainly, if something already has some type of blood transfer on it, if you walk through it, you can also get further stains on you. So there's a lot of different ways that blood at crime scenes can be transferred. But on the far left is a shirt of the white Yeti suit, and then it's darkened. And on the right, I chose this shirt for a specific reason. It's a dark color that's as close as what type of shirt I had that matches what Bridge Guy's coat was. And as you can see on this one, you can blow it up, whatever, you can't see any type of blood stain on it. It's very, very light. So if this encounter occurred in the selection of his coat, Bridge Guy selected a color of coat by accident or by design, I have no clue, but it was extremely effective that it would not reveal any type of blood stain that is fresh. Because as soon as this happened, within 15 minutes, I took these photos so that I would have, because I gave myself a timeline of when the possibility of when the murders occurred to how long it would take him to probably get into back on the trails or walking towards wherever he was walking, and possibly might have encountered someone. And what would they see? With the color he chose a very, very effective color to conceal any type of blood transfer. Then, of course, this is the same shirt, but when you turn it inside out, you can see on the lighter color of the inside of the shirt. And like I said, we chose this shirt for a reason, so that I could show you that what these exact blood stains that you see on the inner side of it are what bled through the material. And so you most certainly can't see them on the outside of the shirt. But when you turn that shirt inside out, you can see them. Now, when I hit this shirt with luminol in the future, you'll be able to see it. Like I said, it's going to light up like a Christmas tree, all of them. And it will, like I said, this is just for people to realize this is how Bridge Guy was fortunate enough to favor him, that he went into a crime scene, was able to commit such a terrible crime, and walk out of there with people not being able to identify that he had blood on his coat. Or so I'm speculating, but most certainly it's educated speculation. And because there's a lot of things that went his way that day. Was it blind luck? Don't know, but it most certainly went that way. Then I had to look at, well, what would be the worst case scenario, that if he was there, and there was a large transfer of blood. And so on the back of my Yeti suit, I did everything I could think of that would possibly be the worst case scenario of how much blood transfers from different types of injuries to contact by the victim to possibly even the knife stains or transfer stains from the knife blade. And they're marked here, and most certainly you can just look at it and you see my hand. You can see the tip of the knife blade. You see what the arterial spray. Two of the thin, elongated or horizontal in this suit right here, they were created by simulating what an arterial spurt would be with movement. That if you was moving across at the time that the heart was beating, and that if blood left the victim, this is what you see. But then the one in the middle that you see that is just one big, almost circular, that is a stationary arterial spray that's just the same amount of volume that was in each of these that went across long, thin ones. That's the same amount of volume. Every one of these, I used the similar amount of volume in my tube and was able to pressurize it and create this. And then you have where it was pooling on the back of the leg on the that's referred to as passive. But this, like I said, is the worst case scenario. And I did this for a reason, so that we would be able to see how it might have possibly he was able to. And you have to realize that when we get to the shirt here in just a second, and I did a blow up to the hand transfer stain. I did the knife stain blow up so you can see. But then when we go to, as we prepare to see the shirt, once again, I just highlight all the areas, give you a blow up so that you can see what was quite surprising. This is the shirt on the right that I chose, that you can see that I duplicated everything that's on the left on the white Yeti suit. I duplicated on that blue shirt, everything. I did the arterial spurts. I did the handprint. I did the knife transfer or the hand transfer. I did arterial sprays. I did drops. And you can, I mean, it's extremely hard to see any evidence of blood. And once again, with this shirt I chose, that when you turn it inside out, you most certainly can see how well this color was able to conceal any type of blood stains or blood transfers or any of the blood spatter that occurred that day. And so I found that extremely revealing and quite surprising. And when I showed Mrs. Steve, she came out and she inspected it, and she was quite surprised at what was occurring, and that she couldn't believe that the amount of this
blood.
Well, let's see what type of this fake blood. Synthetic is the word I'm looking for. We're having one of those moments, but the synthetic blood that it was able to conceal, and the synthetic blood has a very, like I said, it's built and made and created to act the same as what real blood does. And so then I went to the jeans, and I said, okay, let me look at the jeans. Let me create everything that was on the Yeti suit. And I went in there, and most certainly when I hit it with the synthetic blood, it created some very striking stains. And we picked these jeans because they were the closest thing I had to what Bridge Guy was wearing. And so I hit the front of them. And this was what was the minimum that I saw on the Yeti suit. This is what the minimum blood stains did to the front of the jeans. And then when you go to the back of the jeans, and I recreated what was on the back of the of my white Yeti suit to this is what you saw. And you would say, well, most certainly anyone would see that was involved. And if you walked out of the woods on the trail, people would see that. But we have to remember, Bridge Guy went through a creek. And then once I wet the pants to simulate the same environment and put that variable in that the pants are wet, you see the stains virtually disappear. And then as I had these wet pants, I walked them around, went up the road for carrying these pants for 15 minutes. The same time frame that at a minimum, that if it took him 15 minutes to be on the crime scene before he had contact with someone. And I noticed that the water, as it dripped out, started slowing down after about 4 minutes. That as I walked, the drip pattern of the water coming out of the pants legs was slowing down. At around 8 to 9 minutes, it was almost no more droplets coming out of the pants. And so by the time 15 minutes was up, most certainly had been very little water that if anyone met him would see droplets of water around his boots or feet. And this is on the front side where there was minimum stains. And so once I turned them over and went to the back side, all those stains that you saw, this is what it turned into, that they become almost non-existent, non-visible to the eye. And I found that, like I said, quite surprising. And so as I was building this and looking at this, I wanted to demonstrate how bridge guy's fortune for him to be able to get out of there and no one see all this blood stain occurred. Like I said, this is the front, side by side. One of them's dry with stains, one of them's wet. And so most certainly you can see what the comparisons are. This is the back. Like I said, this is what I did this for, to demonstrate that no matter how much stains, even on those, what kind of colored, I guess this is what, stone washed or something, what would they color?
No, it's just a light denim.
Light denim colored jeans, that even with these heavy stains on them, that once they become wet, it virtually camouflages any, and where anyone that saw them wouldn't identify any type of stains or be able to recall that. Then I did the boots. The boots on the left, and I wet them. The boots actually became extremely dry, and water shed off of them extremely quickly, because this was after 15 minutes. You can't hardly tell the difference between the two shoes with the blood drops that's on top of them, that there's actually any blood stains on them. So I was quite surprised at that also. That when I was doing this and running through these tests, and for the fact I wanted to do everything I could from the shirt to the pants to the boots, so that, and most certainly nobody would ever pay any attention to work boots and whatever kind of stains on them. So it wouldn't really matter if they were wet or dry on a bridge guy. But after all these tests and everything, like always, if you have any information, most certainly call that tip hotline, email them, text them, call 911, whatever. If you have information about who bridge guy is, call that information in. Let's bring it to an end as quickly as possible, so that we can have justice for Libby and Abby, because we have to do everything we can for that. But with that being said, we'll get into and we'll go back. If anybody has any questions on certain parts of these stains, we'll go back and look at them. But like I said, I was quite surprised when on some of these tests of how well everything had to go for bridge guy to be able to walk out of there and nobody recognize any of those stains. All right.
All right. First one up is, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Justina from Poland.
Excellent.
That is fabulous and so cool.
Glad to have you here.
All right. So now let me go get the stuff. All right. You got bunches, okay?
Okay.
All right. So, okay. I didn't turn off my email. Golly bum. Hold on one second here. Okay. All right. And we're going to recognize Deborah Lyons. First time here.
Thank you. Glad to have you here.
Thanks for stopping by, and hope you'll come back to us.
Appreciate the views. Appreciate anything or your comments or anything. Absolutely. Everybody plays a part in this.
All right. And let's see here. 804 Melissa. I have a huge question, Steve. Why would 5 years ago FBI was there and said, we know who BG is, referring to RL, and nothing happened?
I would have to say that the investigative team that was working for that, they chose to follow up and give the credit, or most certainly the person of interest at that time, to the investigative team that was following up on him, because they would have had other suspects within their sights. But the evidence pointing to the property owner, to the residents, to the everything that you saw in that affidavit tells you why they went after Ron Logan. And there, even to this day, there are certain agents that believe that's who it is. I most certainly think and believe that while they had the right to go in there and they got that search warrant, but they were never able to locate any evidence to support what the theory of that investigative team was. And so, like I said, every investigative team goes out there, tries to gather as much evidence to prove their point and hunt that bad guy, and which they did. And did that team think they had the right guy? They did. They went and found and executed that search warrant in that residence, gathered all the information they could, and weren't able to bring it to a close. But that's what happens in some of these search warrants.
All right. And Nadia, still I am wondering why LE is saying we will be surprised to see who the killer is.
Well, yeah, I have no idea why they, most certainly, there's a lot of people out there that after today's news, most certainly has an idea of who they think it is.
And this is priceless. Thanks, Kathleen. First knife, now washing machine.
Yes. Oh, yes. We
Always. I'm used to it.
We do all kind of testing. She enjoys it too. Don't let her get you.
I just don't like the knife in the washing machine. All right, let's see here. Nadia, if BG is intelligent, he threw the clothes in the garbage, never to be found.
That or there's other ways of getting rid of them, but most certainly that's one possibility.
Savannah, more like burnt to clothes.
That's another possibility. I'm going with burning. That's fire is most certainly
very destructive.
Yeah.
All right, and dog defender, Mr. Steve, will synthetic blood act the same as real blood? Would type of fabric matter, temp of water, type of cleaning chemicals? Will luminol work on any type item? You got a bunch there.
Yes, this is the first. Yeah, leave that up.
I will.
This is the first time I've worked with synthetic blood. We were trained on real blood and years past, but everything that I read on the synthetic bloods is that it was created to make sure that the pathogens that limit the exposure to the crime scene people as they were doing experiments and doing training and doing all these controls and stuff, so that you're not around, blood is harmful. There's a lot of things in blood and a lot of things that can go wrong. But everything in the paperwork I read and all the white papers I read on them most certainly says that the synthetic blood acts the same. Everything I've seen in it, testing on the cloth materials, the bleed throughs, the transfers, the blood spatter, all of that looks like and acts like just what I remember from all the training I had. I haven't, the types of cleaning chemicals is some of the future tests that I'm running currently, along with washing these clothes to see how long it will work. And will luminol work on these? Absolutely. I went up there in that outside crime scene the other night and lit it up. And it was quite remarkable. I knew I was creating that crime scene. I knew how much blood or synthetic blood I put out there, but I didn't realize how well and the synthetic acted just like what luminol would on real blood. And so I was most certainly impressed with the synthetic blood. So Lisa, thank you for that donation. That means a lot to us. We appreciate your support. And we've already got that spent, I guarantee you. Checking convictions. Thank you. Good. Checking conviction one is also a great channel out there. They do a lot of missing persons and things. So give them credit. Go check them out.
Okay, now I got to go back and find my other one at 808. All right, here we go. Let's see here. Next one is here it is. Looky here, I found a way to highlight. Is dark arts, but would anyone throw away their shoes? And would it be harder to get blood off shoes?
It is. I've had to throw away how many?
A lot.
Yes. Through my career, whenever you have violent encounters with offenders, sometimes blood gets on them and you generally just throw them away. But did he do that? Did he burn them? We don't know. Did he keep them? Don't know. But most certainly law enforcement will look for those. And as you'll see some of the testing that I do on these boots with these synthetics, you'll see what law enforcement be looking for.
And Kathleen, burned or buried clothing or dumped, I would think, far away.
Yes, there's long, most certainly. All of those are considerations that law enforcement will look at and are looking at.
Mm-hmm. And Deborah, how does one get away for so long? It seems this all should have been done sooner.
Well, the initial investigations for the first 2 years was along one pathway. And then Doug Carter, when they turned around and said, you never thought we would go this direction, they went a new pathway. And so when you have that, did they identify and have identified? I most certainly believe so. And I believe that it's coming fast approaching the day that we all been looking for. And you can know who the offender is, but there's there's several movies out there where either defendants or attorneys or people say that it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And that's true. You have to be able to prove it to a jury. You only get one shot at this. So you don't just randomly go out there and put somebody and hold them, because offenders have the right to a speedy trial. And if you don't have your ducks in a row, that most certainly will hurt you. So you just can't hold somebody forever without the proper evidence and be prepared for court.
And Kathleen, do you think he wore layers, got rid of outer layer clothing if he drove away, etc., no blood noticeable on underclothing?
That's a possibility. But the reason I did this was to see that if he didn't, what if he just walked away wearing the exact clothing he had on? To bring extra clothing or layers of clothing for this reason. Did he bring the weapons to commit this crime? Absolutely. For the fact that we had these two innocent children murdered. And so he came prepared for that. Did he come prepared with other clothing or layers that he might have? That is possible. But if he didn't, and it was just the luck of the day of how everything fell in the way, and he was able to escape notice. And that's what all these controls was for, to look at it from that perspective, and to show you that even if he didn't bring layers, this is how people might not have, and reasons why people might not have noticed him walking away.
In dark arts, oh wow, inside out the blood shows up. Was that after washing?
No, this was on this one. This was 15 minutes after the blood had soaked through. And but like I said, you can't tell on the back of the shirt where I did the heavy. I mean, you can see some light lines, but nothing like what you can, it doesn't stand out to you from the outside. When you turn it inside out, most certainly you have a clearer image of it where you would see these stains. But no, that's not after washing. Those shows and that information will be in the future whenever, as we do this and we wash them with whatever. Um, we probably won't be releasing what type of detergents or what type of cleaning we use on it. But we don't want to educate the bad people too much or at all. But no, this wasn't washing. This was just 15 minutes after, turned it inside out and took pictures.
All right. And Kathleen, then if he wasn't soaked in blood himself at a very close ranged murder, how do you think the girls were killed that they would have been less blood spatter on BG?
There's certain positioning, and that's a good point that when you ask that. The crime scene techs working the scene, they would know by looking at the scene and what type of injuries occurred, that if there was an arterial spurt or spray coming out of an arterial injury, that you know where the blood is going. You know what the natural arc of that is. You know the direction it will go. And if you see that heart pump in a general direction, and then it just stops, then you know that there was something between that stopped that from, you may see that, oh, okay, we have a certain injury. It creates a certain type of blood stain. Then all of a sudden, you see that fall off and the blood drops for 2 or 3 feet, but you don't see them for 4 feet or 5 feet. That's because something interrupted it. And whatever was standing between it and the natural arc and the falling off of the stain, then we know that more than likely, is that what the FBI agent was referring to? That, yes, we know a certain injury occurred, but there wasn't that evidential, that there was some evidence showing that that there was someone standing in a position that would have received a certain type of blood stain or blood spatter. And is that what they're referring to? Don't know, but that is most certainly a possibility in the CSI world of properly trained individuals being able to look at scenes and seeing the shadow effect of certain injuries and high velocity, mid velocity, and low velocity blood spatter.
All righty. And single mama 4, blood is hard to get out of anything altogether.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of proteins and all different kind of stuff and chemicals, and it's made up of a lot of things. And I couldn't tell you what it's all made up for, but I know that I've had enough blood-stained clothes that she's argued about in my life. And but we're going to see where we can go with this and see how we're doing on the both outside and inside that we can.
All right, and Double Rainbow threw some words out there: passive versus arterial.
Passive blood is like the pooling or the natural flow of where it would pool. It's not anything. It's not like the cast off. It's not like any. There's so much different that when you look at blood, or when you do your research and you look at blood spatter analysis and you look at certain blood stains and cast off, how much force is used on a droplet versus what some of the passive is. The arterial stuff is from when the heart is beating and there's an injury, such as a neck injury, that will allow, or it can be arms, it can be legs. There's a lot of places that when certain arteries are cut, that they will spray. And you have to be extremely careful that when you do certain injuries, that they are extremely life-threatening. And but the passive stuff is just like if you've cut yourself or any time in the past and you didn't know you had an injury and you just laid your hand down on a board, if the blood, or on the ground, if the blood pools around your hand and everything, that is more of what we're talking about, the pooling, natural pooling of what gravity, and it just gathers in a certain spot.
And dark arts, the blood stains show up really well on the lighter Yeti suit, but wearing darker colors could totally be unseen, especially after dry.
Yes, I've got them up there dry now, and most certainly they are. It's hard to see.
right. And and Anne, wow, very illustrative of what the crime scene situation must have entailed.
Yes, and like I said, there's a lot of well-trained individuals out there. Hopefully, they were on scene. Hopefully, they were able to perform and gather some of this evidence, and hope, and they will have been looking for not only the blood stains and certain injuries that and stains that will occurred from the victims, Libya and Abby's injuries, but they will have also looked for other stains in the area that might show that Bridge Guy had injured himself, because generally anyone that uses a knife in any type of encounter, there's a high probability that they're going to cut themselves. More often than not, that happens. And more often than not, sometimes that has led and been the only thing that led to certain convictions is for the fact that they injured themselves.
All right, double rainbows. The dark shirt even includes color of blood, red color.
Yes, and like I said, that was just by coincidence, and I saw it, and I said I got to have it. And took it out of the closet, and Mrs. Steve said okay, and she's nice that way on my some of my control.
New one.
Yeah, she just goes by a new one.
All right, and support with Steffa. It makes me think that BG may have gotten back on the trail to exit.
Absolutely, nobody would have been a little wiser. And for like I said, the fortune of what he was wearing that day, and when you look at these side by side from these stains, like I said, it's one thing if he hadn't been in that creek, but once I introduced the water, and like I said, virtually made them disappear.
Mm-hmm. And Molly, wow, much harder to see on the dark shirt, even more if the shirt was also dark inside.
Yes.
But wow, the light inside.
Yes.
You can see it good there.
Yes.
All right. And let's see here. And double rainbows. That leads me to assume perhaps this isn't BG's first time if he knew to wear dark colors for getaway purposes.
On the coat, yes. On the jeans, most certainly that would have to be up. I mean, he would have had to foresee that we was going to have to wet our jeans and stuff. But I can't argue either way because it's been mentioned by Carter and other agents and other law enforcement officers that did they think it might have occurred before, and has it occurred since, and did they think he might do it again, and they alluded to those facts.
And Anne, I'd be pretty surprised if the perps didn't burn their clothes. In such rural areas, easy to do without being noticed or thought unusual.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of people out in the country still have burn barrels, so it would have been quite easy, or just go out and have a campfire or a bonfire, especially that time of year. Nobody would have been, the wiser.
And Molly, wow, that's a mess on those jeans.
Yeah.
It sure was. Still is.
Still is. Yeah.
And dark arts, if it were me, I wouldn't notice the blood stains.
Probably not. But like I said, even, like I said, I tried to make it as light as I could and as heavy as I could on certain things so that somebody might have noticed. But there's no mentioning of anyone that we know of that said, oh, yes, I remember somebody with heavily stained clothing, or even wet clothing for that matter. That's still something that's up for argument of did he and how did he leave the scene, and what, and who saw him, if anyone saw him.
All right. And Black Rose 11, water. Interesting.
Well, like I said, I tried to take everything that I knew that was at the scene that was possible of where Bridge Guy would have been. And if he crossed that creek, that's how come I did the water test.
And support with Steffa, the jeans look wet and no one is searching looking at others' pants.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. All right.
Absolutely.
And let's see here. Molly, wet jeans with a longer jacket, shirt could just look like darker colored jeans from even a slight distance if they aren't dripping water.
Yes. And I cut this off here. I mean, he may have been wet all the way up to his belt line. I have no idea. But most certainly if he crossed that creek, could he have been wet up higher? Yes. Could it have been lower? Absolutely. Don't know. I just tried to create something so that people could see the differences in the two and see what I was trying to accomplish.
In double rainbows, surprised he didn't wear dark indigo jeans.
And if he had, I would have gone more towards that. Yes, this is someone that might absolutely have been involved in other incidents. Yeah, the premeditated stuff.
Yeah, I like that word. All right. And Anne, and by 4 p.m.-ish on a Friday afternoon, it's already starting to get dark.
It is. Yep. Especially, and that was one of the things that everybody has to look at, that how did he leave and which direction did he go and how long did he stay? You know, that's hopefully we find that out soon.
All right. And Scott Brown, do you think this case will ever be solved?
Yes. I think we're moving towards that direction rather quickly.
That was quick. All right. And Black Rose, maybe the killer lived alone, did his wash and walked throughout the water. Great example, Steve. Thank you. Wow.
And that most certainly that they would have looked at this type of crime and analyzed, you know, the behavioral science units and know what type of personality this individual is. Psychopath, and you know, there's certain types and certain narcissistic values and things that you have to look at of what these psychopaths possess and what their personalities are like, how controlling they can be. Whereas if they do live alone or if there is someone home.
And Dark Arts, the only way I'd notice anything would be overly wet jeans still dripping or squeaky shoes from the water. Yeah. I like that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And but like I said, the dripping, like I said, started slowing down after 4 minutes. Like I said, I walked up and down the road, timed them, watched them as they dripped, and saw when the drips around 4 minutes started slowing down due to the gravity and the shaking out or just what like natural movement would be. And then after like right around 10 minutes, it was very, very slow drippage from that point on. You can see here of them laying on the ground that there's no runoff from these leggings into the concrete around them. And so that shows you how, you know, other than just being wet, they're not, you know, water running out of them.
And Sweet Caroline, them boots got my name on them. Go back to them boots picture.
They do.
Caroline, they do. I didn't even notice that.
Oh, I knew that, the Carolina, but I didn't associate them with her.
Too funny. All right. And from Ramona, just think how much physical self-control BG has. He must not have been shivering when he got out of that freezing water. And
there's you know, there's certain things about tunnel vision and certain things that when your body's in fight and flight modes and certain things and that adrenaline flowing that happen to the body and to the human reactions and how what the brain reacts to and how they react.
And checking convictions. Thank you for the visuals. This gives a factual look of what could have happened. Thank you.
No problem. I mean, this is what we train to do, and this is what investigators will have done and looked at and tried to answer. How could this happen? How could he have come into the scene? How could he leave the scene and not be noticed?
And Sweet Caroline, I pray whoever done this is caught ASAP before he does this again.
I agree. Absolutely. 100%.
And Ann, if I was in that area that dry winter afternoon and saw a guy walking along with wet pants, I probably wouldn't have thought much about it, but later would remember when news started coming out.
And that's the thing is that how close would you have to be to realize that they're just not that color if he was wet all the way up to the belt line? Because like I said, once the water quit dripping, and as you can see on the concrete, there wasn't any water running out. And that was only after 10 minutes. If the time was longer, 30 minutes, what would they have looked like? Don't know. I know what they would look like, but would anybody have noticed? Don't. I haven't run those tests.
And Kathleen, there would be a little blood spatter on him if he was at a distance, like using a gun, as opposed to more personal using a knife.
The high velocity blood spatter, most certainly that does occur from not only guns, but from certain types of weapons being used.
All right, SP74, another great presentation.
Thank you.
All right, CJK, out of his career, what did Steve enjoy the most? Should I say fishing? Fishing.
Oh yeah, my off time. No, I had a great career and I enjoyed it. Probably the most bonding thing was the SWAT team training and stuff, and going in and arresting certain individuals, some of the high risk stuff, because there's certain bond between officers that do that. But my off time, most certainly fishing. The adrenaline when you're on duty and you're going in to do what needs to be done was very rewarding, because it's in those serious situations that the more serious they are, the more impact you have on the community, because you're taking the greatest threat that community may or may not realize that lives in their presence.
Dark Arts, this presentation is the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Checking convictions. Once again, I learned again from your experience. Bravo.
Thank you.
Black Rose. Steve, did anyone see the suspect's wet clothes?
Don't know. They haven't released that. Or someone just may have seen it, didn't report it. Hopefully somebody sees this and says, oh, I remember that. And but that's why we do this stuff, is that we create this stuff to see if we can have an impact and might bring somebody's memory back to focus to look at something, or if someone came home with wet clothes or a neighbor saw someone come home with wet clothes. And that's what this is about.
All right. And Rich Buddy. So it's not the guy who lives by the bridge who has the same hat and jacket?
The FBI wasn't able to prove it. And most certainly that's exactly who they were focused on within days. And they weren't able to conclusively bring charges against him.
And Dog Defender, Mr. and Mrs. Steve, how can we get names added to Cyclops? Give me more time in the day.
But maybe they have a name to
Oh, you want to get a name?
Yes.
You email me.
Yeah.
Email Steve at truecrimeweb.com.
Yes.
And I'll slap it on there. I am going to be working on Cyclops this weekend too, so there will be more names added.
Yeah, I don't know how many names are on there. There's thousands of names on there.
There's thousands of names, but if you do see something that needs correcting, adding, deleting, whatever, spelling, just email Steve at truecrimeweb.com and I'll take care of it. Let's see here. Okay. What news from day was, I don't know what that says. Okay. Let's see here. And Kathleen, do you think BG dressed on purpose as RL or overdressed for blood spatter to hide physique or wait cold early morning dressing warmer?
You know, all of those are might be possibilities, but it would take a certain awareness of individuals that live there or in the area, or how common is that in the area. I mean, does everyone dress that way? I mean, is it common to have a dark coat and jeans in that area? It is here. You could probably go to town and look around and at certain times of the year and see how many people are dressed similar. But just don't know. But there's so many different ways. But that is a good question. I just don't know what the answer is.
All right. And CJK, what news was Steve referring to? MS?
Yes. I'm not pleased with them. And that will put me on a rant for the fact that releasing the information that they released and how they released it is that if it is true, now you have made aware and of who, if what is referred to as Kagan did release that information, and he has said what he says, and they say that, well, he's such a liar, but even liars tell the truth sometimes. And from that information, now we have to have that if it is true, the offender or offenders who killed these two little innocent children know what's about to happen. They know the game's up. You have forewarned them that law enforcement's coming. And so now they can kid up, arm up, and now we have to have an armed encounter. That it's not fair and it's not right to place law enforcement at risk. This information that they released today has been known among several creators out there. And I among them. I have that information that's been out there for several weeks. We haven't released it, wasn't going to release it, and won't release it for the fact that we don't want to put officers' lives in danger. We don't want to put that the case evidence supporting this could possibly be destroyed now. Souvenirs can possibly be thrown away now, just so that these individuals can get clicks on their podcast. Also, you have the ability that now BG, if this is true, and they don't know, I mean, they went into a 5-minute description as describers trying to say that, well, this may be a lie, but what if it's not? Now you have the ability that this BG can harm himself, harm others in his immediate family, harm innocent bystanders, and it just creates a nightmare. And why they chose to do what they did is absolutely infuriating to me. Because now, if it is true, these officers have got to go and get BG. And I have the utmost respect for all the creators. And I know there's several out there, I've spoke to them, that have this information. And they chose not to release it. And that's the right thing to do until an arrest is made. You just don't put, I have no problem going and getting BG. Wouldn't affect me at all. I'll go in there regardless of how well and how prepared he is, regardless, to take care of business. Not even an issue. But why would you do that and think that, oh, this is just something, they didn't realize the consequences of what they've done. And I hope they realize it now. I hope that they get the message that, just because you have this information, you may have the right to say something, but it don't mean it's the right thing to do. I have lost all respect for that group. And I'll try forever in the rest of my life never to mention them again. They most certainly brought interest to the case, and they highlighted it and spotlighted it. But what they did today is unforgivable to me. You don't put innocent people's lives at risk for just getting views. Just infuriates me.
Okay. And Ann, Mr. Steve, looking at the BG visuals, what do you think are the elements of his clothing? Obviously, boots, pants, jackets, but what about a hat, a scarf, layers of clothing, brownish item at his waist?
Absolutely. Yeah, all that would have been in there. I only concentrated on the two things that, because when I evaluated the white suit, Yeti suit, and my mask, there was no blood stains up here or any type of transfer or to my glasses or to anywhere on my head. So I most certainly had some items that I was going to bring into that, but I thought that this demonstrated it with a minimum amount so I could have a presentation as short as I could because, like I said, there's so much stuff that you could cover that you can't get into an hour presentation.
Okay, let's see here. Kathleen, you better hope that, I think that's supposed to be LE,
Yeah.
never comes in on your property and uses luminol. You're going to have some questions to answer.
Yeah, someone asked me the other day, did I put up crime scene tape? I thought I would, but I knew that would bring more attention to it than just leaving it and they not knowing what it is.
Melissa, why they mention a gun in Delphi? Because they weren't shot, they were stabbed.
Most certainly, but there is certain information and certain stuff out there that might indicate that control was gained by the presentation of maybe a gun.
And Susan Purdy, do you think DC may have changed his opinion on who is responsible since when he made a statement about people being shocked we hadn't even heard of KK or TK?
At that time, before they turned around, I think that he did have a certain individual in focus. And then 2 years later, it turned around and we went to this. So, but I think that was the basis of what he was relying upon.
All right, let's see here. And Deborah Lyons, thank you for your answers. I enjoy you doing forensic factor of the case. Amazing for us to see for ourselves.
Yeah, it's more than just a 43-minute TV show out there, you know. I mean, you get to turn on TV and you watch these guys go in there and it's so obvious and stuff, but there's hours and hours of work. I have utmost respect for the crime scene. And now, not everybody puts on the white suits and protective gear and goes out there and gloves up and processes crime scenes. You know, there's a lot of agencies out there that do pretty good jobs. And at some point, this is where it's going to go. It's going to get to where it's absolutely almost like lab work inside of certain crime scenes. And it should be, because we have the abilities to go in and process and gather evidence that never existed in the history of mankind. And we've reached those scientific levels now that we can go in there and process scenes at a level that's never been seen.
And Kathleen, could he have bleached shoes and threw them away, would have got rid of any trace of blood, especially to the naked eye?
There's a lot of ways they might have and might destroy DNA. Just because DNA exists at one point in time doesn't mean it will continue to exist. It's not the most hardy stuff out in the world. Sometimes it lasts quite well, but sometimes it's like anything. It can be destroyed.
And Ann, handy thing is, if the POIs have outstanding warrants and are involved in other criminal activity, can pick them up while still in parallel investigating the murder, gets them off the street.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Cherry Sprinkle, if they found evidence, how soon do you think we could see an arrest?
Well, most certainly what happened today with a certain crew releasing certain information, it may have created a response that wasn't necessary. But if they just do the lab work, because they can't react and go out and do certain things until that lab work comes back. If they found something, and it depends on what the item is, can they match it up to certain injuries? If it is a weapon, is it an electronic device that has to be able to be cleaned and handled, and certain data recovered that's been underwater for multiple years. It's going to take some specialists, and how long that will take, don't know. And, law enforcement may know who and know exactly what happened, but they can't prove it. And it's going to wait until they can prove. And once that proof exists, then that's when we'll see the next movement.
So Nadia, at the Wabash River, there was a red flag marker. I read that it is pinpointing evidence. So they found evidence at the river?
I don't know. I know there's several people out there that's been reporting those red flags, and what does it mean? Because there were white sticks and there was yellow flags and there's red flags. Whatever the crime scene people out there that's marking them, or the recovery teams, whatever, though, they know what they mean. I have no idea.
And if there's a crime involving a lot of blood, might be less likelihood of extensive staging or positioning. That might more likely in clean MO like strangulation or smothering. Gruesome. Sorry.
Oh yeah. There's so much involved in the when you have such a scene, and whatever the fantasy of whatever psychopath that's doing this, and whatever the motive is that's driving him to do it. There's a lot of stuff that has to be considered.
All right. I think you answered the question about yellow and red flags.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was from
I don't know. Each of them will have their own color code charts and whatever training they had.
Double rainbows. It has to be a heck of a time being married to a cop. I wouldn't want to do your laundry either. It was pretty disgusting.
Oh, back in the day.
Yep. Let's see here. And Deborah Lyons, OMG, I found a new favorite creator. Ellie has taken a lot of hits on a lot of cases. It helps to hear how police work. Do you see this trend getting better?
Hopefully there's a lot of people out there that have interest in this, and hopefully there's more creators that want to go out there and become good ambassadors for law enforcement, because it's critical. Because web sleuths, as a community, have such great power and the ability to have such impact. That if you take the collective of the minds working on a certain case and gathering evidence and looking at it and analyzing and getting the information out there, because sometimes it just takes that one tip, as with most obvious has been stated time and time again in this case. And so as law enforcement becomes aware of how to best use the private part of the communities and reaches out to the true crime people out there that want to help, and there's room for improvement, and hopefully we'll reach it.
All right. And Molly, at Steve, I know there are special gloves that Ellie wear for searching suspects, protect against needles, etc. Are there gloves that would keep a knife from cutting your hands strong enough for that?
Yes, sir. They developed certain types of gloves. Now it depends on if the department allows you to wear them. Jail staff most certainly wear certain types of gloves so that they don't get needles and things. But there's some that are resistant, but then also that there's always other, accidents happen.
And Alicia, thanks, Steve, for providing incredible insight into the case and your amazing research.
Thank you. It's an honor. And like I said, I hope I have an impact and make people think about how we look at things, and hopefully y'all look at things and give me any type of suggestions you want, because I most certainly will, try to do whatever I can to bring that perspective to you.
All right. You want Millie's on there? Just joined sleuth to watch murder sheets. Admitted to being a red Jeep.
No, we're not.
Okay.
Yeah, I most appreciate that, but like I said, I think it was irresponsible what they did, and they have to live with those consequences if it does turn bad.
All right, and Melissa, now if he was in the water, would the blood come off his clothes, washed away the blood?
No, I air dried the jeans after I soaked them and everything, and most certainly the stains are still there. But that's for the future test and stuff that we're running. And Charlie 883, appreciate that support, and it means a lot to us. And
I think she's from Canada.
all right, thank you.
Charlie.
But yes, we most certainly appreciate anyone's support in so many different ways. It means a lot to us. Thank you.
And no nickname. The air and water temp had to be very uncomfortable for walking any distance.
Yes, if that's how he egressed out of the scene, or even just manner of crossing it, if that was some type of either as they tried to flee, or as he forced them, just one crossing would have had the same result as far as getting his jeans wet.
And Anna, lots of murderous creeps have had their own man caves where they hid their trophies and guilty items.
That is true.
That is true.
Absolutely. Some of these animals, like I said, they live in their own fantasy world and they relive them. BTK is a fine example.
Yeah. All right. Now it's 9:12. Did you want to go to Kristen, or what, what do you want to do?
Yeah. You got anything that's...
I've got some more in
Well,
here.
give me a couple, 3, 4, 5 more.
Let's see here. Ramona, I learned so much here. Thank you for all the time and work you put into it. Dog Defender, Steve, I'm married to LE and still learn more from you. Thank you for your service and your time.
Oh, man. No,
that's funny.
We all have, you know, I guess I talk more about it now than I did when I was working. But yeah, it's a tough job. And, you know, sometimes we're not as understanding to our loved ones. And, but I most certainly respect you and your spouse for what they do.
And Charlie, yep, excellent information. Fingers crossed that the information put out today is true and a resolution is imminent. Those poor little girls and those poor families.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I you know, just can't imagine. All right, so let's see here. And Black Rose, wondering because I hear there were some people who saw a strange person in the park or on the bridge.
Well, I mean, we got a picture of one.
Yeah. All right. And Anna Lizette, dark clothes cover for a lot of stains, dirt, paint, grease. Don't want to wear light colors and work in the outdoors.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I always, and I still to this day wear a lot of dark clothing for that fact.
He just about has to wear dark. Let's put it like that.
They last longer, cheaper budget.
And Molly, yep, makes it dangerous for LE and can let the rats get back into their holes, never to be found.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was despicable. Like I said, I don't understand them.
Well, here you go. Here's a friend. Cop fact. Some of us know how to keep our mouth shut.
Exactly. Now, cop
Thank
facts,
you so much.
And he knows the risk. He knows what, as in the position that he was in his career, he knows what the officers will do. They'll go do their jobs. You know, when you tell them to go out there, but now we've forewarned these offenders of what might be coming. And like I said, thank you, Cop Facts. That means a lot. And he understands. He absolutely understands what risk that these people, I mean, we're not talking about 2 shoplifters or somebody here, or offenders, 1 offender, 2 offenders, ever how many offenders. We're not talking about shoplifters. We're talking about individuals that absolutely killed 2 innocent children, and they treat it as if it's just, you know, it's nothing to them. Absolutely despicable.
All right, let's see here. Okay, they're all talking to each other.
Okay.
Um,
Well, we can call it unless you have another good one there.
Awesome information.
Mhm.
Hey, if you haven't hit the like button for us, stop by there and tap it before you get out. We certainly would appreciate it.
Yeah, as we close out the show and everything tonight, I most certainly appreciate it. And y'all go out and check Copfax, and he has a great channel. He also has a great book. Pay attention to him. The man knows what he's doing.
Stepha's out there too.
And Steffa.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Checking convictions.
Yeah, checking convictions. Check all these people out. They all are great parts of this community and have done great things for this community. But
I got one more.
okay.
Have you done anything on summer wells?
No, I haven't done anything on summer wells yet.
Okay, Deborah Lyons asked that question.
Okay.
All right, wait a minute. We got a few more popped in here. Hang on one second. Okay, no, we're not talking about that. That's MS. Okay. Okay. All right, we're done. I'm done.
Okay. Well, guys, I appreciate y'all being here tonight. If you have any information about that will identify or assist law enforcement, most certainly call that information in. And just be careful and safe out there. I'm about to go over and check out Christian behind the crime door. If any of y'all want to join me, I'm going to be in chat over there. Most certainly support her and support all these other channels that came in here tonight. They all, like I said, we're here for one purpose, and that's for justice for these two young children. And we most certainly should do everything we can. But I'll see y'all in a few days. Saturday, I think, is our next show.
Is it Luminol Saturday?
No, it won't be Luminol. We'll probably discuss what
I
went
like
on.
Luminol. I like the splash.
Yes, but we'll probably be discussing about some of the responsibility things of what creators should do, and we'll be discussing this case here. And hopefully we'll have some more information that will come out next day or two. And I'll probably, as we run some of the controls, we'll cover some of that. But most certainly, y'all be safe out there and look forward to seeing y'all.
Take care.